Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. In this, our 6th season, we are looking at the Avengers. I'm Andy Nelson from the Next Real Film Podcast.
And I'm Pete Wright, and it's Shakespeare in Grief Day.
Today we are talking about Minute 46, which begins with grumpy Thor and ends with laughing Loki. Back on the show from last week, it's Nathan Blackwell and Krissy Lenz from the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I look to be in a gaming mood today.
Oh, good. Excellent.
I'm Grumpy Thor.
Oh, yes, we are back having this, a couple episodes now where we're going to get to talk about kind of this conversation between Thor and Loki up here on this cliff top, which we, I think, have decided it's canon for us that this is the location where Steve and the Howling Commandos were looking down on the HYDRA train. So here we are. And this, we get, toward the beginning, we get kind of this answer to how Thor got here, how Odin had to conjure dark energy to get him there. I don't know. I don't know if we want to start there, but I think it's an interesting place to start. This whole idea the Bifrost is gone, and now they have to use dark energy to travel around the universe. And I don't know if they had before this particular moment, or if this is the first time that they've tried something like this. But this is... but that's how he got here. And I guess it's also kind of a setup for Thor the Dark World. We're going to be, starting to get these little nods of things that they're setting up for future films as they kind of continue all of this.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Mostly to you, Andy, because I wasn't on the Thor season regularly. When the Bifrost was destroyed... was there any indication that there was a backup transportation system in the form of dark energy? Did Heimdall say, "Aw, shucks, I'm out of work, but thank God you guys have this dark energy thing"?
Yeah, no, it's never brought up. I know obviously we'll see in later films that they can also, there are spaceships and they can fly around in spaceships, and he's got his boat that's pulled by his big goats and all that sort of stuff. So, there are other ways of getting around. It's just Bifrost was incredibly handy as far as getting you to places very quickly. And I guess that's kind of what they do with the dark energy. But it does, I don't know, I guess the nature of calling it dark energy, which we've kind of been hearing since the first Thor film, when we hear that Eric and Jane are looking into. But this is, and then of course the start of this film, we've got the Joint Dark Energy Division. We've got this, they are legitimately now working on studying dark energy in a greater capacity, although really Eric is kind of using it apparently to get Thor, or to get Loki here. But I don't know, dark energy is kind of this thing that's been going on, but the nature of calling it dark energy, especially in a world of magic, kind of makes it feel like it's something that you shouldn't be doing.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
I feel like by calling it dark energy, there's got to be some limited supply of it, or some trade-off or consequence for using it. Like there's a balance. Like the more we use of this, the more like dolphins die, or something like that. Like a trade-off, or this is the equivalent. Like it's like people in another multiverse start crying every time we use dark energy, or we only have like a 1-week trial to use dark energy, and then we have to pay for a subscription after we do this. So we can't do any more dark energy after this Thor.
Those payoffs are some of the most creative payoffs for using dark energy that I'm not even sure that people at Marvel have come up with. So we need more of those.
Thor's like $2.99 a month forever. I like to own my dark energy, but I don't want to rent it.
No, it's Asgardian money, $2.99. It's a lot for us. Jeez, it's a lot for us.
The market is not great right now, y'all.
Yeah. So that I can
like
understand.
50 cents in Midgardian bucks.
Right. A whole new angle to dark energy that we'll have to make sure we're talking about this when we get to Thor the Dark World. So that we can really...
There's the subscription model.
Yeah. Maybe they're paying the Dark Elves. Maybe they're the ones who have come to collect. Well, it is an interesting element that is brought up here, this idea of traveling via dark energy. And also, I will say, I know with the Bifrost, they seemed to have like specific way stations where they had to land every time? Like, why in Jotunheim did they have to land like way far away from everything? It didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I guess with the dark energy, Odin can be much more specific as far as like where he wants Thor to land. Although, I guess this is a question. Did the dark energy take him all the way to the Quinjet, or did it take him to Midgard, and he has been now flying around with the power of lightning and Mjolnir to get to the Quinjet?
Mm-hmm. With like a paper map, turning it upside down.
Right. Yeah. Damn it, I went the wrong way. I've been crossing Africa. I need to get up to the Mediterranean.
I prefer to think of it that way, that he's just like swinging the hammer around like whoosh, 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 whoosh. Loki!
Right. Stepping into like a KFC asking for directions. Yeah. What country is this? All countries have KFC.
Maybe this is why he's so angry when he finally gets there. He's like, I've been looking for you for hours. Do you have any idea?
I was in a gaming mood when I first got down here. Now I'm not anymore.
All right. Well, this is also this point where this is the first time Thor has seen his brother since he let go of him, and since Loki let go, which certainly ties into a later point in the conversation that we're about to have. But this is the first time he's seen his brother, and this whole idea of they mourned, everybody was mourning you, Loki. And I find this to be an interesting conversation, especially following the season of Thor, because there was this bond between these two brothers, even though there was this also butting of heads, especially once Loki decided to usurp the throne and everything. But even by the end of that film, Thor was trying to save his brother. Thor wanted his brother to still be there. And Loki really kind of had a shift in that first film from the point where he realized he was a frost giant and all of this sort of thing. How does this play as kind of a continuation of the relationship with these two brothers from that film for the three of you?
Yeah, well, I feel like this scene really serves like two purposes, like getting us back up to speed on what everything happened in Thor, and then also kind of like putting us into what Loki's like motivations are for doing all this, which is like, I thought my dad and my brother were my family, and then it turned out they weren't, and now I've got to kind of like make my own thing going on, And is this like the first of 3 times that Thor will eventually say, I thought you were dead? Or does that only happen like 2 times?
I think it happens many times.
We have it here. We have it in
Ragnarok.
I think that may be it.
And then there's a 3rd time he dies, but spoiler, it's for good.
Right.
Until the TV show.
At least in one time.
Right, until it's not. Until he meets them on the TV show. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So who knows? Maybe they're waiting for a 3rd one when they figure out where the TV show is going to take him. Maybe somehow Loki will end up back in the universe.
But I think it does a good job of kind of reminding us what were the stakes and what were the things that they really cared about. Even if you had seen the last Thor movie, it helps refresh you and get you into their what they really want.
Yeah.
Coming on the heels of that film, and I know we had Captain America in between, but that was also jumping all the way back to the past to kind of catch us up with this particular new hero who's involved in the story. But is there an interesting element here for any of you as far as this film, because of the specific follow-up to Thor and following up really to kind of this Thor-Loki relationship? Loki wanted a throne in that film, didn't get it. He jumped off into this wormhole, and now he's trying to get a different throne, and yet again, Thor is trying to stop him. Does it feel like there is an element to this film that, had it not taken 45 minutes for us to finally get Thor into the film, that this kind of feels like, this kind of feels like Thor 2?
I think, yes. There's so much playfulness, but also that sort of broodiness whenever you get those Thor-Loki moments. And then as soon as they're back together with all the other Avengers, that sort of all gets dropped. So this is our opportunity to feel the two of them together and kind of remember what Loki's motivations might be. So I think so, yes.
Yeah, I think it's really a great sequence because it gives us a chance it reminds us that even though these guys are fighting and at each other's literal throats, they're still family, and they both struggle with what it means to be family in their own way, and that struggle is just magnified when they're in the same physical space with one another. Like, I really love this, like, as much as I was just sort of joking about landing in a ball of thunder and lightning on a plane in the last minute, like, this, for Thor, to me, is enough of an emotional journey to transcend Midgardian justice in the story. Like, I believe it, I buy it, and I like it. Anything short of this deep personal grief and anger that he thought his brother was dead and they mourned and he's not dead, that would be superfluous. Like, it would, or superficial. It's enough to me, from what I know of Thor at this point in the MCU, to truck with that. I buy it. I believe it. And I am sad for him, because I can imagine, the way it's portrayed, what that would feel like.
Yeah, I feel like I get why he comes in so hot wanting to know about the Tesseract, because, like, if you found out your brother wasn't dead and he stole your dad's car,
yeah,
then you would come in pissed about the car because you're now angry rather than relieved and elated, because you now shifted all those feelings that you felt to now blame, and now he's trying to pull off some new thing.
Do you guys also think that there's a little bit of, like, reminding us of all this, like, sort of petty Loki stuff kind of gives us a hint that he's not the, like, he's not the evil bad guy in the same way that Thanos eventually is, like, that he really has, like, a sweet nougaty center.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he is the villain of this movie, but at the same time, they're not going to go the route of changing the character, making him go so dark that he is the unrelatable villain. They're keeping him as the likable villain. Yeah, they're leaving the door open that he is a likable, forgivable villain that they may turn into kind of a good guy later on.
Like in the Fast and the Furious, where the bad guy always becomes the good guy in the next movie.
Exactly.
It's like that with Loki.
Even though, lest we forget, he nearly just killed an old German man for standing up to him.
Almost.
Yeah. I mean, there's an interesting element to that. I think all of everything you're saying definitely makes sense as far as Thor, his anger, all of that. And I do think that in this conversation, we also do see Loki's side, this whole idea of the fact that, hey, by the way, did he tell you that I'm adopted, and that whole thing? Because I think that there's an interesting element here between the two brothers where Thor doesn't necessarily see that here. And I know he'll use the adopted line as a joke later in the film, but the idea that they really are brothers, and this whole thing, the line that he has, we were raised together, we played together, we fought together. There's this element of Thor trying to, or telling his brother here at this particular point, none of that matters. You have been and always will be my brother. Yet Loki is the one at this point who can't see past that. And that really kind of, like, he's still midway along his character's journey as far as where he ended up in the first Thor film when he realized all of this about his parentage and everything and decided he was going to take the throne. And so, yeah, I think there's an interesting journey that Loki, the character, will take over the course of the franchise. And I like it. I like seeing these two characters. After having done a whole season of them, I really kind of felt very connected to them and their relationship. And I enjoy having these moments here that, I think for the most part feels like it's written in a similar voice than we had in the first film. I do think that sometimes I struggle with the Tig Notaro voice fitting the characters as much as I think that they had been written previously, but largely I think it's okay.
Yeah, I feel like they are a little more Shakespearean in this.
From somebody who may not know Shakespeare as well as Kenneth Branagh.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Recompense for your imagined slights.
Right.
Right.
Trying a little too hard.
Yeah.
What do you all think about this line that Loki has? I remember you tossing me into an abyss. I mean, that is very much not what happens. And it's because Loki very deliberately lets go of Thor. And I found that to be is he just saying that to jab at his brother, or does he truly, is he really remembering it in a different way now? Like, I'm kind of surprised that he looks at it that way.
Agree. But that's his trick. That's his game, is to twist it so that it's always Thor's fault, right?
Yeah. So that Loki is the victim.
Right. To always be playing that little brother victim part.
Yeah.
Also, like straight out of the narcissist playbook, right? Like
Right.
that's kind of his jam, and like that's also his damage, and that's what makes Hiddleston's portrayal of him so interesting. Is that he's he is always in a gaming mood. Like,
Oh, yeah.
always
He's-
in a gaming mood.
He's just a little giggle monster.
He's like everything is a smokescreen, and I think that's one of the things that makes him super compelling.
I agree.
I agree. I will say, though, I'm just saying, I don't think everybody is always writing him that way. Like, I legitimately think as they're writing this character in these scenes, they're writing it as an actual conversation between these two people. And I don't think that, I think it becomes very easy to always say with Loki, oh, he's such a trickster. Everything he does is a lie and he's always manipulating people. But I don't really think all the screenwriters over the course of all the projects have been doing that. And so sometimes I think that it ends up just being an easy way out just to write him off that way.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right, Andy. And I think it is shorthand to be able to get away with a lot of stuff with Loki that might otherwise be less interesting, just as a way to get through a scene. And I don't, to me, I know there are a lot of people who have trouble with it, but to me, the most sort of interesting and complex portrayal, like letting Hiddleston have the reins a little bit, is in the TV show, where you get to see exactly your point. They're not writing him as a complete trickster, because that is absolutely one-dimensional character development, and it's not any fun. Ironically, it's not a fun way to write a character who only games people. Like, there has to be some intention. This scene works for me. I think part of the reason it works for me when we're looking at it minute by minute is because it's deft and short, a little bit out of context. It reintroduces these two characters that I long to see together, and then it moves along. And, we'll see where it moves along. But I think your point is very well taken.
Yeah. Now, we're going to have kind of exploring this conversation about Thor's role with Earth and the Midgardians on it, and Loki's interpretation of that. I guess we can, I don't know, maybe we just save that conversation for tomorrow, because there's a lot more of that in tomorrow's minute. But at the end of this minute, Thor says, "So you take the world I love as recompense for your imagined slights? No, the Earth is under my protection, Loki." And of course, Loki laughs at that. I mean, yeah, should we just save that for tomorrow? Because we're going to get a lot more of this conversation about Earth ruling, all of that.
Yes.
Okay. Then the only other thing that I wanted to check in with is, what do you all think? We haven't really talked about this yet, but, I think it is valuable to just note in the context of looks of our heroes from one film to the next. I mean, we know Tony is still in his Mark 6 suit that we saw last in Iron Man 2. Captain America, of course, has his newly designed duds that, of course, Phil Coulson had some say in. Thor, his look looks similar, but it is a little bit different. There are little changes to it. One of the biggest changes is, of course, that he is now sleeveless, and we're getting, of course, his biceps and everything. And I just wanted to check in. How does it look for all of you as far as Thor's new look? Oh, and let's just say his eyebrows are no longer bleached.
Yes, that's the thing I noticed.
Hallelujah.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations about those 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
But what do you think? The sleeveless look? Do you like it?
I would say I'm into it, Andy. Yeah, let's pop those sleeves off. I mean, he didn't do all of those push-ups for nothing. I think the more they let Chris Hemsworth shine through the costume, the more real Thor seems, because Chris Hemsworth is like a Norse god hiding in there, you know? So the more real he's allowed to look, the more compelling I think he looks. The less the suit has those big like
circles and
growth. Yeah. The more it's just him and his real body under there, the more he seems to be this beautiful magical creature and not just like the costume is saying everything we want to hear.
Where like the modern day superhero costumes that are designed with a lot of extra padding to make these actors look like they're a lot more muscular. We're actually going,
Right.
oh, he actually is that muscular. That's kind of what you're saying?
He actually is. And, well, but also like, you know, not bleaching his eyebrows and not, you know, kind of changing his face as much as they did in the first one, like letting it look more like a man kind of.
Like an archetype, right? Like that's what Thor is. And I think you're absolutely right. I think making him like letting him show off the archetype that he created for this film, for this character, for this body is awesome. I have a harder time with it now that I've watched Limitless, the series on was it Disney Plus, where have you, Krissy, you're nodding. Have you watched it?
I have, yeah.
I mean, that was bonkers, that show. I mean, he put himself through all of these things over the course of a year to ostensibly extend his life. And some of the stuff we learn is just like how extraordinarily hard it was to do, or it is to do the stuff that he does to his body and to make this like make it all work. And And I think it was in one of the final episodes where he's like, you know, if they want me to do that again, they can put me in a muscle suit, right? Like, I feel like there are a lot of lessons learned. And I think I have, as an audience member, like the gift of hindsight is greater empathy for what the actors are being asked to do. And to the same extent that we talk about the special effects artists who are being worked so hard, like there is extraordinary damage that you can do to your body, to, you know, dehydrating yourself to make your skin look all tight and like all of these things that I think are really, really challenging. So it's a little bit hard to watch the big muscle bound. Like I wonder if we're in a phase that is coming to an end.
I think so.
It's been, during our lifetime, it's been an interesting kind of new double standard to where you, as a male action star, have to get just totally shredded.
Yeah.
For whatever the part is. Like Paul Rudd never needs to get shredded. Okay?
No.
And he got shredded for Ant-Man, and they cut both of his like shirtless scenes. You know, it's like
right.
But you know, he looked so much more human in Quantumania. Like I don't feel like he looked fit, but he didn't look destroyed. And I think that's important. Like, look at what Kumail Nanjiani did to himself. And anyway, we're getting off the topic of this minute, but I do think I notice it as dated now. And this is kind of a new awareness of mine.
Yeah. The 6-pack abs are not enough abs. You got to have 12.
12 packs. You have to have the all 12. Yeah.
Uh-huh. He looks too small in this.
Yeah.
Well, it will be interesting to see, like, as they continue, where is that line going to suddenly shift as far as people not necessarily needing to be quite as buff? Like, is Mahershala Ali going to have to go through any training as Blade? Is Kumail Nanjiani, if they bring him back in another Eternals film, if they do, is he going to be as buff as he was? Like, where is that line? And you know, are they going to slowly kind of you know, cut that from something that they feel is as much a priority? You know?
Yeah.
So. Well, this has been a good minute. We're going to finish this conversation, talk more about their precious Earth and all of this in tomorrow's minute. So Nathan and Krissy, tell everybody again about where they can track you down out there.
We're at the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian revisit the 80s movies that we think we love or maybe even completely missed. With these, our modern grown-up eyes to decide, do they hold up? How well do they hold up? Are they embarrassingly bad? Do we have to be ashamed of how much we loved them back in the day? And it just, I kind of take a funny look at the films of that era from the very smart perspective of Nathan, the genius filmmaker who knows all the filmmakery stuff, and me, the comedian idiot who just says silly things.
All right. So what are some examples of some films that you both have revisited in which they've held up really well? They haven't held up at all. You're embarrassed to still love them. What are some examples?
I think Time Bandits is one that we actually had Pete as the guest for, which I had never seen before, and it holds up terrifically. Didn't you think, Nathan?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was just as bonkers and funny and scary as I remember. And one that did not hold up well was Teen Wolf. Oh, my God.
Oh, that's coming soon. I haven't listened to it yet.
Yep.
Spoiler alert,
Andy was
it
our
does
guest for
not
that.
hold up well.
Oh, no.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It's not even embarrassingly enough bad to be funny to watch as a bad movie. It's just...
Right. It's not problematic. It's just a little flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Dull.
Just kind of a bummer.
Yeah. Well, check that out. We'll have the link for that in the show notes, everybody. You can check that out along with everything else for Nathan and Krissy. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk about minute 47. So with that, Pete, thanks as always.
Tomorrow, I'm the comedian idiot.
Until next time, true believers.
Marvel Movie Minute is a production of TruStory FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. This season's music is Message to the World by Anthony Vega, and this season's show art is by Winston Yabo. Find the show at trustory.fm. If your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.